Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a world where, well, trust is a really fragile currency. Identity is constantly shifting, and deception, it often lurks just below the surface, sometimes even in plain sight.
We're talking about romance scams, yeah, but also the broader kind of ever-evolving landscape of digital deception.
Exactly. And it's crucial to understand this isn't just about losing money, though that's obviously devastating. It's profoundly about psychological manipulation.
Right, that insidious erosion of trust. And, what happens when the very lines between what's real and what's fake become, frankly, terrifyingly blurred?
And what really sets this particular deep dive apart, I think, is our core source material. We haven't just relied on, the usual research papers or isolated interviews.
No, definitely not. Our insights actually come from this remarkable live online discussion. It was a Twitter space, actually.
That's right.
And it brought together this incredibly diverse and often really unexpected panel of individuals.
It was far from your average conversation about online safety, wasn't it?
Oh, completely. It was raw, unscripted, a real exchange that featured perspectives you rarely, if ever, hear sort of converged in one place.
That's precisely it. So our mission today is to really peel back those layers, moving far beyond the kind of conventional advice you often hear.
Yeah, the usual don't click links stuff, which is important, but...
Yeah, but it only goes so far. We want to explore the truly unique insights that came from these individuals who have lived experience on, well, both sides of the digital divide.
I mean, not just victims.
Not just victims, absolutely. Yes, victims were there, but crucially, also former perpetrators and active ethical hackers.
Wow. That's quite a mix.
It really was. And this extraordinary blend offers, we think, a fresh, unfiltered understanding of trust in the digital age. It's packed with surprising facts and practical takeaways you just won't find easily elsewhere.
So the big question is, what does this all mean for how you navigate your online life?
Let's try and unpack this complex landscape. So how did this whole thing even, come about, this unique deep dive?
Yeah, where did that Twitter space idea originate?
Well, honestly, the whole idea for this particular space, which became our main source, it actually started from something a little less serious, maybe even a bit humorous at first. My own digital inbox, my DMs, were just constantly flooded. Messages from what appeared to be, incredibly attractive women trying to connect, expressing interest, sending compliments, the kind of thing.
The classic
Yep.
hot woman DM. I think many people experience that.
Right. And initially, I actually found myself thinking, wow, am I so lucky? Is something genuinely, bubbling here? But as the sheer volume just kept increasing, it became really clear this was something else entirely. It wasn't genuine interest.
It was a pattern.
Exactly. It got to a point where, honestly, out of sheer curiosity, maybe even a touch of mischief, I started to sort of play with these potential scammers.
You engaged with them.
Yeah, just to see what their game was, to figure out what they really wanted. Just poking the bear, so to speak.
It's genuinely compelling, though, how that initial, almost funny personal experience, coupled with your natural curiosity, became this unexpected catalyst.
Yeah.
It really moved from a lighthearted personal experiment to a pretty profound and serious look into digital deception. That evolution says a lot about, well, the drive to understand these complex things.
Yeah, I think you're right. That initial curiosity really did drive it. And then that personal experience combined with watching shows like MTV's Catfish.
Right, the show about online identity deception.
Yeah, and particularly that Netflix documentary, Swindler, which was just mind-blowing, highlighting this massive romance fraud operation.
That one really brought it into the mainstream consciousness.
It did. And it forced me to look deeper into just how alarmingly common online relationship scams are, the sheer scale of the deception.
So that led to the first space.
That's exactly when I decided to host the very first Twitter space on romance scams. But honestly, it wasn't serious at all at first. It was born out of pure sarcasm and irony, almost like a parody of what was happening in my own DMs. Right.
But then something really remarkable happened. Things just, well, they organically evolved.
And what's truly fascinating there is how that initial, maybe somewhat lighthearted space just organically started attracting individuals with highly relevant and often pretty astonishing backgrounds and expertise.
It was wild.
It really speaks to the kind of unique environment that must have been created, an unscripted, open forum that allowed these really disparate voices to just converge.
The panel practically assembled itself. It drew in voices that, typically wouldn't share the same digital room. It created this unprecedented melting pot of perspectives.
It was completely serendipitous, wasn't it?
It really felt that way. Suddenly, we had people joining who had incredible, direct, deeply personal experience with the topic from basically every conceivable angle.
And that just transformed the whole conversation. Completely. It went from a casual chat into something profoundly insightful and, well, educational, really. And that really brings us to the unique heart of this deep dive. The panel itself. These are absolutely not your typical talking heads, offering generic advice.
No, definitely not. Each person brought a perspective shaped by direct, often surprising, sometimes even, frankly, shocking personal experience.
It created this incredible tapestry of insights that just goes far beyond anything you typically encounter in a standard discussion about online safety.
And the fact that these individuals were willing to openly share their stories, their insights, in a live, unscripted forum like that, it speaks volumes about the kind of unique, maybe even trusting environment that developed there.
I think so.
This is where the strength of this deep dive really lies, doesn't it? The deliberate, or maybe serendipitous, but successful gathering of such an eclectic group.
Yeah.
Their diverse backgrounds allowed for this incredibly multifaceted analysis of online deception. It moved way beyond just the perspectives of, say, victims or traditional law enforcement.
Absolutely. It included those with firsthand knowledge of the criminal mind and even people operating in these ethically ambiguous areas to fight back.
It's like a 360-degree view, which is incredibly rare to achieve in these kinds of conversations.
So let's maybe introduce some of them. Let's start with Anna Rowe. Her story is particularly poignant, I think, and it sheds light on a type of fraud many people don't even really consider.
Right. She was a victim, but not of the typical financial romance fraud we often hear about.
No, she was targeted by a UK lawyer who was leading a complete double life. This individual wasn't after her money.
What was the motivation then?
His primary motivations were apparently sexual gratification and, crucially, this desire for power and control over her.
Wow. That broadens the understanding of romance fraud way beyond just monetary loss, doesn't it? It highlights the severe, often hidden psychological abuse involved.
It really does. She bravely shone a light on coercive control within these online relationships, drawing really strong parallels to domestic abuse situations.
And incredibly, Anna transformed what must have been a profoundly traumatic situation into this powerful positive force.
She did. She went on to set up Catch the Catfish.
Right, an organization dedicated to helping others who've fallen victim to similar deceptions. And her core principle, no blame, no shame, that's incredibly impactful.
It really cuts through, doesn't it?
It does. It directly challenges that prevalent societal tendency to victim blame, shifting the focus towards healing, towards prevention, and away from the shame that so often silences victims.
Her insights reveal that often hidden psychological toll, which is, I think, a key differentiator from purely financial fraud discussions. It emphasizes the emotional and mental devastation that can occur.
Definitely. Okay, so after Anna, who else was key?
Then we have Brett Johnson, self-proclaimed original internet godfather.
Goggles, quite a title.
Isn't it? This man has, get this, 39 felonies to his name.
39?
Yep. Was at one point on the United States Most Wanted list, and he actually built and ran Shadow Crew.
Shadow Crew, I remember that. One of the very first large-scale organized cybercrime communities, right?
Exactly. And here's the kicker. He even continued breaking the law while he was working as a confidential informant for the Secret Service.
No way. Seriously?
Seriously. His transformation story is truly wild. But today, he says he works tirelessly, works his ass off, as he put it, to protect businesses and consumers from the very type of attackers he used to be.
So he's using his past experience for good now.
He leverages that unique past to counter cybercrime.
Well, Brett provides an unparalleled, completely unfiltered look into the criminal mindset and tactics. That's insight that's almost impossible to get anywhere else.
He was incredibly blunt.
Yeah, and he openly admitted, didn't he, that he never truly understood the damage he caused as a criminal. Not until he started interacting with victims.
Right. Now he understands the profound suffering. He stated it very plainly with his characteristic bluntness. Criminals do not give a damn about their victims. Full stop.
That raw, unvarnished honesty is such a rare and unique facet in these anti-scam discussions. It offers listeners a real strategic advantage by understanding the enemy from the inside out. Their motivations, or lack thereof, their lack of empathy.
Absolutely. Then our third key voice, offering an equally unconventional perspective, is Spiderby.
Yeah, Spiderby.
He described himself as an active black hat activist, been part of the anonymous movement since 2009, he said.
A black hat.
Mm.
So operating outside the law.
He openly admits to employing social engineering tactics to gain trust and information from people. But what sets his focus apart is his motivation.
Which is?
He targets and actively works to catch traffickers and predators, especially those preying on children on platforms like Roblox and even Grand Theft Auto roleplay servers like 5M.
How does he do that?
To do this, he uses what he called bait software, which is essentially stealer malware. He lures them in.
Wow. Okay, so Spiderby's presence highlights a pretty significant and maybe uncomfortable ethical dilemma.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. He openly acknowledges that his methods involve doing something illegal to help the people.
And he risks punishment for what he believes is doing the right thing.
Which, as he sees it, points to a profound failing in the traditional justice system.
His ground-level view of how these digital tools are exploited by both criminals and those fighting them, regardless of the legal implications. It provides this raw, unfiltered look at the moral complexities.
Yeah, the gray areas in this digital battleground, it forces you to question the boundaries of justice in what often feels like an unregulated digital space.
Definitely. And who else was instrumental?
And let's not forget Scorpio, my co-host for this deep dive. She's certified in cybersecurity, a true expert in the field.
Right.
Yet she shared this powerful, incredibly vulnerable anecdote about being targeted herself. Through stolen valor, actually.
Stolen valor. Someone pretending to be military.
Yeah, and it happened during a time of immense grief for her, right after her father's death.
Oh.
She powerfully emphasized that even cybersecurity experts, with all their technical knowledge, are incredibly vulnerable when they're emotionally compromised.
Scorpio's personal story really underscores that undeniable human element of security, doesn't it? It reinforces that psychological vulnerability can transcend even the highest levels of technical expertise.
It's a critical reminder. These aren't just technical exploits. They are, at their core, human exploits that leverage our emotional states.
It highlights that the strongest firewalls can just crumble in the face of profound human distress.
And, just to be fully transparent here, I also openly disclosed some of my own risky behavior and personal experiences in the digital realm during that space.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, from using dating apps purely for research purposes back in the day to intentionally infecting my own computer with a rat malware or remote access Trojan.
You infected your own machine. Why?
Honestly, sheer curiosity, just to see how it worked from the inside, which, by the way, promptly led to my work credentials being dumped online. So maybe not the smartest move.
Knuckles. Probably not.
And I've also been hacked more times than I really care to admit over the years.
Well, that willingness for self-disclosure from you, as the host, I think that's crucial. It reinforces an approachable persona, showing you're not removed from the common struggles and dangers of digital life.
Hope so.
It offers relatability, helps foster a deeper connection with the listener, you. It makes the information feel less like a detached lecture and more like a shared, honest exploration of a universal challenge. It kind of validates the listener's own potential vulnerabilities.
Well, the dynamic of this panel with these incredibly diverse, often contradictory backgrounds, from a victim-turned-advocate like Anna to a reformed cybercriminal like Brett, a vigilante black hat like Spiderby, and an expert like Scorpio who's been personally compromised.
Yeah.
It created this rich, sometimes, confrontational, but always profoundly insightful dialogue.
It really sounds like it went beyond typical, maybe superficial advice.
Totally. It provided multiple authentic perspectives on trust, deception, protection, stuff you just won't get from a standard cybersecurity webinar. Now, one of the most, I'd say, provocative and necessary points that came out of the panel, especially from Brett Johnson, was how he directly challenged this widely held, almost comforting belief.
Which belief is that?
That simply raising awareness about scams will somehow be enough to protect people.
Ah, yes. That was a genuinely striking argument he made against that common notion. He used that analogy, didn't he? The Amazon fake reviews one.
He did. Can you remind us?
Yeah, he pointed out that most people are actually well aware that, a huge percentage, maybe over 80% of Amazon reviews are fake.
Right, we kind of know that.
You know it. Yet, despite this knowledge, people still read them and often base their purchasing decisions on them.
It illustrates that fundamental disconnect, doesn't it, between intellectually knowing a threat exists and being able to effectively defend against it in practice.
Exactly. It's a stark, maybe uncomfortable reality check.
And he explained that many romance scam victims, in fact, initially suspected a scam was underway. They had that gut feeling, that little red flag popped up.
But they carried on anyway.
Yet, despite their suspicions, they still continued communication and, shockingly, continued sending money. He identified this as the lost cause fallacy.
The lost cause fallacy. Can you explain that a bit?
It's that psychological trap where victims keep investing more time, more emotion, more resources, precisely because they've already invested so much. It makes it incredibly difficult to cut their losses and just walk away.
It's that human tendency to justify past actions, isn't it? Even when those actions are clearly detrimental.
Right. And this raises a really important question for you listening.
Yeah.
Why does this happen? Especially when that initial doubt is present.
Brett's unique perspective as a former criminal provided some chilling clarity there. He emphasized that criminals view their actions as a lifestyle.
A lifestyle.
Yeah, a constant 24/7, 365 crime of opportunity. They are, as he put it so bluntly, better at committing crime than the average person is at protecting themselves.
It's a sobering thought.
It is. They're adaptive, relentless, constantly refining their craft. This fundamentally challenges our comfortable assumption that we can just know better, or that common sense is a sufficient shield. It's really an asymmetric battle.
And that leads us directly, I think, to another insidious and deeply damaging societal issue, the scourge of victim blaming.
Oh, absolutely. Anna and Brett powerfully agreed on this. Society's tendency to ask those questions like, why would you click that link? Why would you send money? What were you thinking?
It leads to immense isolation, profound shame, and just further trauma for victims who are already suffering.
And this societal blame, it has tangible detrimental effects on a much larger scale. The data shows that only a shocking, 7% to 14% of victims actually report romance fraud.
That's incredibly low.
It is, which means its true scale is severely underestimated. It creates this distorted picture of the problem.
And that, in turn, directly leads to severe underfunding for prevention efforts, for recovery support, for law enforcement resources dedicated to these crimes.
Which is why Anna's organization, Catch the Catfish, operates on that core, non-negotiable principle of no blame, no shame.
Right. Consistently emphasizing that victims didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly. They were targeted precisely because they are good people, because they possess empathy and a capacity for trust. This shift in perspective is absolutely crucial for fostering empathy, encouraging reporting, and ultimately helping victims heal.
Anna also introduced a really vital concept that's often overlooked when we talk about vulnerability. She called it situational vulnerability.
Or what psychologists might call a hot state.
Right.
Yeah.
She explained that victims are often in these emotionally heightened states, maybe experiencing significant life events like grief, the trauma of divorce, the stress of redundancy, even just the disruption of moving house.
And these states make them significantly more susceptible to manipulation.
That's right. Her insight highlights the profound depth of psychological manipulation involved. These major life events trigger specific, she said, chemicals going on in their body,
creating an emotional and cognitive opening that scammers are just expertly poised to exploit.
It's a temporary state, she stressed, not a character flaw, not a deficiency in judgment.
And that understanding makes vulnerability so much more relatable, doesn't it? And less stigmatizing for you, the listener. It helps grasp that anyone can find themselves in a hot state where their usual defenses are lowered, making them prime targets.
Scammers actively seek out these moments of distress. They look for them.
Which is precisely why, as Brett underscored from his own chilling criminal experience, the importance of reporting, even when it hurts, even when it feels embarrassing, cannot be overstated.
He confirmed it, didn't he? That the pervasive lack of reporting actively emboldened him.
It emboldened him to commit more crime and, terrifyingly, get better at it. Each unreported success fuels the scammer's confidence and hones their methods.
So he urged everyone listening, report crimes, regardless of their type or perceived insignificance.
Emphasizing that it matters. This isn't just about catching one individual criminal. It's fundamentally about preventing their escalation, disrupting their operations, and protecting countless future potential victims from what he called the better criminal they become through that unopposed practice.
Reporting provides that crucial data that law enforcement needs to understand the evolving landscape of these crimes.
Okay, so diving deeper now into the chilling mechanics of modern deception. Spidey gave us this incredibly candid look into the hacker's evolving arsenal.
Yeah, particularly focusing on social engineering and digital exploitation. He detailed how he meticulously social engineers people to gain their trust, extract information.
And it's not a quick process, is it?
No, this isn't a quick smash and grab. He explained that for larger financial targets, this process can sometimes take a couple years.
Years to build the necessary rapport and psychological leverage.
Exactly. And what's truly unsettling is his candid explanation of these specific modern scam models, like one he called demons in demon lives.
Demons and demon lives, what's that?
It involves individuals, often women, performing or shaking for money on live streams. Their videos and pictures are then illicitly taken, stolen without consent, and reused.
Reused how?
To scam other people on platforms like Kurd. These stolen personas are then used to solicit naked pictures or certain information from new victims.
Oh, that's grim. He also talked about the danger of sending nudes, right?
He starkly detailed the profound danger, explaining how scammers use body and face-swapping technology to superimpose victims' faces onto others' bodies.
And then upload these fakes to porn sites or use them for blackmail.
Precisely. The chilling reality, as he emphasized, is that once a compromising image is out there, nothing is truly deleted online. That digital footprint is, for all intents and purposes, permanent.
He also noted a key technical detail, didn't he?
Okay.
About phone numbers.
Yeah, highlighting the sophistication. Phone numbers are often far easier for scammers to get than direct, invasive phone access.
And once they have the number,
they can use that to cross-reference against data breaches, leading to password and email searches. It reveals this chillingly sophisticated chain of exploitation. Even seemingly simple starting points can lead to comprehensive digital compromise.
And this raises the question, how do these tactics manifest in even more insidious forms of fraud? The discussion then shifted to sextortion, didn't it?
It did, particularly focusing on the often overlooked male victim perspective. Brett highlighted this is a huge issue in the U.S.
Especially among whom?
Especially among late teen, early 20 males. They are increasingly becoming targets of these highly coercive and often financially devastating scams.
And Brett, in his typically blunt style, offered some direct advice.
Chuckles, he did.
Don't send pictures of One-Eyed Willie. Classic Brett.
Right, but then he followed that bluntness with a crucial, nuanced discussion about why young males are particularly vulnerable, didn't he? Yes, the panel explored the physiological reality that their brains, particularly the prefrontal cortex responsible for impulse control and risk assessment, isn't fully developed until they're maybe 23 or 24.
And this developmental stage makes them more susceptible to impulsive decisions, less equipped to resist manipulation.
Exactly. Which brings in the critical and often really challenging role of parental responsibility.
Yeah, the panel emphasized the paramount importance of open, honest, continuous conversations with children about online dangers, even if those conversations are uncomfortable or embarrassing.
The goal is to create that safe, non-judgmental space where kids feel empowered to report if they become victims, rather than hiding it out of shame or fear.
And Anna shared that successful pilot program she ran in UK schools with 13 and 14-year-olds.
Right. Using engaging presentations on cybercrime and sextortion, it led to incredible work from the students. Posters, raps, poems. It was apparently their favorite lesson.
That shows the power of education, doesn't it? She also suggested for very young kids, parents might consider a brick phone.
Yeah, a basic phone for communication, intentionally keeping them off the internet and away from these dangers during those really formative years.
What's also really interesting is your observation about the difference in male and female sextortion approaches.
Yeah, they seem quite distinct, almost opposite. Men are most often targeted by seemingly hot women playing on sexual attraction.
Whereas women are typically not seduced by unsolicited dick pics, as you put it.
Right. It highlights how these criminal tactics are meticulously tailored to perceived gender-specific vulnerabilities and psychological triggers. It underscores the personalized nature of modern scams.
But here's where it gets, well, really interesting and frankly quite alarming, the accelerating evolution of AI in fraud.
This part blew my mind. We're currently seeing incredibly sophisticated AI-powered voice cloning technology.
Where just 30 seconds of recorded audio can create indistinguishable synthetic voices.
Exactly. And face swap, or shallow fake tech, now allows for superimposing realistic masks onto video call participants.
And lip-syncing AI can make stolen videos of real people speak custom text. Deliver any message a scammer wants.
Precisely. So a scammer can now make a stolen video of your loved one say, "Hi, Mom, I'm okay, but I need money." Or, "I'm not a scammer," victim's name. They can appear to talk about incredibly private details only that person would know, all while being a completely fabricated interaction.
The sophistication has gone from, what, pretty rubbish and cartoonish early versions?
To incredibly realistic, rendering old safeguards like asking someone to move their head side to side on a video call completely obsolete.
It's now becoming virtually impossible for victims, and even for trained experts, to reliably distinguish fake from real.
And Brett's stark prediction, delivered with his usual bluntness, is maybe the most chilling takeaway from this entire deep dive.
What did he predict?
He stated that in 18 months from now, the entire game will change fundamentally.
How so?
Scammers won't even need to bother stealing identities anymore. They will create entirely synthetic people.
Synthetic people, generated wholly through AI. Voices, backstories, personalities.
Everything. And real-time AI conversations will be so seamless, so adaptive, that human interaction will be virtually indistinguishable from machine-generated deception.
The societal impact he foresees is profound. The internet itself changing completely.
With the potential of society getting to the point of not being able to trust anything that they see or hear online.
It is not a distant sci-fi scenario, is it? It feels like a rapidly approaching reality.
It really does, and it requires a fundamental reevaluation of how we engage digitally, how we trust anything.
And that ties directly into the growing futility of traditional verification methods, doesn't it? And the glaring failures of major online platforms to police themselves.
Absolutely. Reverse image search, once a key tool, has seen free tools like Google and TinyEye become much less effective.
Replaced by expensive AI-powered ones like PyMeyes or FaceCheck ID, making verification costly and difficult.
Right. Manual tenacity and financial resources are now needed just for basic verification.
And your own personal experience with Twitter perfectly illustrates this systemic problem.
Yeah, recounting how Twitter consistently failed to remove an identical impersonating account, despite me being verified and reporting it multiple times.
And Spiderbee claimed you could buy verified accounts for 25 cents on the dark web, showing how easily compromised these systems are.
And Anna shared that egregious example of the fake, verified Kevin Costner account on Instagram.
Right. That Meta initially refused to remove, despite multiple reports and conflicting verification statuses. It shows a profound lack of accountability.
It's a critical, deeply frustrating insight. Major platforms often place the entire onus on the victim to identify, report, fight for removal,
rather than proactively preventing or swiftly removing fake profiles.
It creates this incredibly steep, almost impossible uphill battle for individuals against an increasingly sophisticated, globally networked, AI-driven threat.
It's like asking individual citizens to fight a war on their own without an army.
So if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, to human psychology, Anna highlighted something fundamental, didn't she? Something often exploited.
Yeah, that humans are inherently predisposed to trust.
From trusting doctors, trusting our food is safe. We're basically wired to trust.
And this deep-seated human nature, she explained, gives scammers an immediate, profound leg up in their manipulative schemes. Brett immediately agreed too, didn't he? Amen. 100%.
He did. And this foundational human trust is precisely what emotional manipulation exploits at its core.
Brett, speaking from his past experience, powerfully emphasized that a criminal cannot defraud you or scam you unless I get you to somehow trust me.
It's not just a tactic. It's the
Yeah.
fundamental strategy.
Right, and if someone is emotionally compromised, reeling from grief, divorce, job loss, they become much easier for me to manipulate.
Scammers, he noted, deliberately aim for emotional reactions, not logical ones.
Because relationship schemes, whether romantic or just friendship-based, they operate entirely on emotion. They seek to bypass rational thought and tap directly into that vulnerability, that yearning for connection.
And Anna drew that chillingly direct parallel between the grooming tactics used in romance fraud and the pattern seen in domestic violence relationships.
Using the specific term coercive control.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. She discussed the methodical phases. First, scammers meticulously get to know victims, mirroring their values, interests, dreams.
Then comes the intense love bombing, that overwhelming 247 affection, constant contact, creating that illusion of intense connection.
And that's quickly followed by the insidious process of isolating victims from their friends and family, subtly or overtly undermining those outside influences, removing potential red flags or external support.
This provides such a crucial psychological framework for you, the listener, to identify manipulative patterns. Patterns that extend far beyond online scams into any unhealthy relationship, digital or in person.
It shows the psychological playbook for control and manipulation is surprisingly consistent across different forms of abuse.
Understanding coercive control, where a perpetrator gradually takes away a victim's freedom and autonomy through threats, humiliation, intimidation, it's vital for protecting yourself not just online, but in all interpersonal dynamics.
The conversation also veered into broader, often hidden risks of online interaction, even beyond financial fraud. Scorpio warned about this.
Yeah, the very real danger of intense bonds forming in online spaces, leading to stalking and obsession, even when there's no initial romantic intent.
She made a stark, sobering suggestion that pervasive social media interaction can, in many cases, actually amplify the mental illness in the world.
Creating an environment where unaddressed issues can fester and manifest in dangerous ways.
It raises important, deeply uncomfortable questions about the societal implications of all this pervasive, often unregulated online interaction.
And perhaps the most provocative discussion point was Spiderby's justification for his illegal actions.
Like using malware to expose and catch other hackers or predators.
He framed it as a necessary evil, didn't he? Saying, getting caught for doing something good, there's a big problem right there. Referring to the perceived failure of traditional legal systems.
I couldn't help but echo that sentiment, relating it directly to my own experience of being sent to prison for reporting a system that was exposing 200,000 medical records.
An infuriating situation where trying to do the right thing led to severe consequences.
Exactly. I lamented that those supposed to do those good things, meaning law enforcement and governmental bodies, are not doing their jobs effectively enough to protect citizens in this digital age.
This discussion really encourages crucial critical thinking, doesn't it? About societal responsibilities, the role of individuals when systems fail.
It asks that profound question. If law enforcement and justice systems are perceived to be failing in protecting the vulnerable in this vast, borderless digital realm, is vigilante action justified?
It's a complex moral quandary brought vividly to life by individuals operating on these difficult, often dangerous fringes. Hashtag takeaways. Prevention, recovery, and the power of shared stories.
Okay, so after all that, what does this mean for you, the listener, in terms of practical takeaways? How can you protect yourself?
Well, Anna emphasized the critical importance of recognizing red flags in how any relationship, online or off, develops.
Healthy relationships, she stressed, build over time, gradually, organically.
Right. If an online connection progresses very quickly and moves very fast with overwhelming declarations of love or immediate intense intimacy, that's a huge red flag.
If you feel overwhelmed, pressured, uncomfortable by that rapid progression, that's your instinct telling you something isn't right.
Her core advice: ask a friend.
Yeah.
Get an outside opinion. And crucially, do it before you become isolated from your support network.
She also meticulously outlined those common scammer archetypes and their standard tactics, didn't she?
Yes, they often claim professions that explain their unavailability or demand trust. Military, doctors, UN workers, engineers, offshore oil rig workers.
Professions that provide ready-made excuses for being away, for poor communication, for not meeting in person.
And they almost invariably have a sad backstory. Anna humorously but grimly called it the 4 C's.
Car crash, childbirth, cancer, or cheated.
Now often with a 5th C, COVID, all designed to evoke immediate empathy and sympathy.
And profile red flags to look out for.
Inconsistencies in tag sections, disproportionate follower demographics like thousands of followers but hardly any likes or comments, and photo upload dates all clustered around the same or very close dates, indicating a recently created or hastily repurposed profile.
Now, here's where it gets really insidious, something many victims are tragically unprepared for: the nature of recovery scam.
Yes, victims are at their most vulnerable immediately after discovering the initial fraud.
And stammers, sometimes even the original perpetrator using a different alias, or entirely new scam groups who've bought stolen victim lists, they return.
They return to exploit that post-fraud vulnerability.
Exactly. They might promise to stop scamming if the victim keeps talking to them, only to later ask for more money for fabricated visa fees or medical bills to get them out of their supposed scamming life.
And beyond the original scammers, there are also those predatory, fake cyber hackers or recovery companies.
Right, actively targeting desperate victims, falsely claiming they can magically recover stolen money.
But they're just a second layer of fraud, extracting more funds from those already devastated.
The crucial immediate advice here, stressed by the panel, is change all your contact details. email addresses, phone numbers, as soon as you realize you've been scammed.
Why is that so vital?
Because scammers often sell their sucker lists of victims to other criminal groups. This leads to a relentless deluge of future spam phishing attempts, retargeting. You have to cut off those lines of communication immediately.
Okay, what about practical, everyday cybersecurity habits you can adopt to reduce risk?
Scorpio suggested using multiple segmented email addresses.
Like one for social media and general stuff, and a completely separate secure one just for banking and sensitive financial things.
Exactly. It makes spotting phishing attempts much easier. A bank email arriving in your social media inbox. Immediate red flag.
And being extremely wary of clicking links, especially on mobile where it's harder to inspect them.
Right. On a desktop, always right-click, inspect the URL before clicking, make sure it leads to a legitimate domain.
And Spiderby elaborated on the dangers of clicking links with those drive-by downloads.
Yeah, he explained how malicious links, even seemingly innocuous ones like spoofed image links, can grab your IP address, your location.
And even silently install highly dangerous malware, stealers.
Like digital vacuum cleaners, designed to instantly siphon off sensitive credentials, save credit cards, passwords, email access, even session cookies that let scammers bypass logins.
It highlights the alarming sophistication of even seemingly basic online attacks.
But perhaps the most powerful, unifying takeaway from this entire deep dive, I think, is the profound power of speaking out.
Nikki's story, right? One of the unsung heroes of the discussion.
Yeah, she shared her own deeply personal experience of falling for a fake concert ticket scam. Not a romance scam, but the emotional impact, the learning, was universal. And it galvanized her into becoming this passionate advocate against online fraud.
And Anna recounted knowing Nikki's story from the media, realizing it involved a real person, not just an abstract concept.
And she shared how Nikki's courageous willingness to publicly share her painful experience directly saved Annette, another potential victim, from falling for a very similar scam.
It beautifully emphasizes the profound why of sharing your story. It doesn't just protect you, it actively protects other people.
It's very gratifying, they said, to turn a negative experience into a positive force for change. And crucially, it prevents criminals from becoming better and better due to that lack of reporting and public awareness.
Your story is a weapon.
So, to you, the listener, if you are a victim of online deception, or if you know someone who is, we urge you, speak up. Your voice, as difficult and maybe embarrassing as it might feel to find, can be the single most powerful weapon against this evolving, sophisticated, deeply personal threat. Don't let shame keep you silent.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's abundantly clear, isn't it? The digital landscape of deception is incredibly diverse, relentlessly evolving.
And expertly exploits psychological vulnerabilities in ways we're often completely unaware of.
And that alarming, accelerating role of AI, poised to transform this space entirely, making it harder than ever to distinguish truth from fabrication.
The need for heightened awareness, extreme caution, and unwavering support for victims is more paramount than ever before.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with a really important, perhaps unsettling question for you to consider.
Yeah.
Given the rapid, relentless evolution of AI-driven deception and the apparent inability of major online platforms to proactively police themselves, how will trust fundamentally change in our daily digital interactions within, say, the next 18 months?
And what does this mean for our personal and even societal reliance on online information?
That's a truly provocative thought, isn't it? For all of us to mull over as we navigate this brave new digital world.
Your vigilance, their critical thinking, and the importance of open communication within your support networks, friends, family, these are your most potent defenses.
We really encourage you to share this deep dive with others, help foster wider awareness, and please explore resources like Anna Rowe's Catch the Catfish for more information, for guidance, for critical support if you or someone you know has been impacted.
We extend our deepest gratitude to Anna Rowe, Brett Johnson, Spiderby, and Scorpio for their incredible candidness, their profound courage, and their truly unique insights.
Absolutely. Their willingness to share their raw experiences from such diverse perspectives has not only illuminated this complex world, but provided invaluable lessons for all of us.
Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and most importantly, please stay safe online.